Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film Her. A man named Theodore, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who has recently been divorced. In fact, he's just about to sign his divorce papers, so it's pretty recent, within the past year. And then he gets a new operating system with a voice and an intelligence behind it, which is voiced by Scarlett Johansson, and he falls in love with the operating system. And they have a relationship, both a sexual and mental relationship, that brings him in as he very much needs someone. This is a very intimate film, and it's very intimate in both the experience of it, and it feels very intimate as written by Spike Jonze. This is the first film he's directed that he has the sole writing credit on. He actually did help write Where the Wild Things Are with Dave Eggers, but this is the first film he's written by himself. It feels very personal, it feels very intimate. I read that how he wrote it, he got tips from Charlie Kaufman, how when he wrote Schenectady, New York, how he should just put everything that came through his mind about the subject and how he was writing, and that's how he wrote Her. When I was watching it, I felt such a personal and intimate connection to it. And I haven't seen a lot of films that the way the screenwriter wrote it is the same way I'm experiencing it. I didn't know that when I watched the film, but I got so personally attached and could relate so much to this man who was recently divorced and alone. When you're in that mode and you just really want someone to hug and to hold and to have that personal connection with, and you'll take it in any way you can, as sad and desperate as it seems. Spike Jonze captures with the OS voice played by Scarlett Johansson how you need that connection and where wanting that connection can take you, but also there's a real love story in this film. Maybe it's best to say a love story out of sadness, but there's a real love story between him and this OS. One that I surprisingly believe in as an audience member. There's really no better way to describe it than saying a man falls in love with an operating system, which sounds kind of loopy and crazy and like a crazy cult film, but there's real emotions attached to that. And I think it says a lot about us and technology right now and how personal technology can be. I was actually talking to someone, we were talking about people's computers getting stolen and how it wasn't so much a financial theft, it's like a personal theft. Like how more fucked up that was than if you stole that equivalent of just money. Because like you have your family photos, your personal photos, like what if you were writing something, what if you were working on something? For me it's like, what if I lost all these videos I work on and everything I work on is just gone? And I feel like this film reflects that. This film understands what technology means. I mean, have you ever cleaned your apartment or your house and you have not just like music on, but just have the TV on because it feels like maybe like something's there, you know? Not that the TV's a person, but I can understand that connection because it's like technology, you know, when you're bored, when you're looking for something, it supplies that, and it's kind of a natural evolution. We just understand that this is his relationship and how small and intimate and tiny his world is. I feel that vulnerability in it, and this film goes into some basic human emotions like connection and loneliness. In a way, this feels like an apex of Spike Jonze films. Joaquin Phoenix feels like very much the prototypical Spike Jonze protagonist, whether it's a Nicolas Cage in Adaptation or John Cusack in Being John Malkovich or Max Records in Where the Wild Things Are. They all feel like these lonely people searching for some sort of a connection, these oddballs who want to be loved by somebody, want to have a sense of belonging. It's interesting, he always wants to have his protagonist be like that. This is his first love story. It just feels so vulnerable in how personal it is. It feels autobiographical, even though I have nothing to base that on. But I was often thinking of his ex-wife's film Lost in Translation. And interestingly enough, that Scarlett Johansson in that film was basically being Sofia Coppola. It felt like that film was autobiographically about Sofia Coppola. And the fact that this is about a divorce and he was divorced from her. There's a scene where Joaquin Phoenix and Rooney Mara are together at this restaurant. They're both signing the divorce papers. Was that something from his relationship with Sofia Coppola? Was that something from a divorce that he has had? I don't know how many times he's been married or divorced, but like, was that from that? And if it is or isn't, there's such a connection there that it feels like maybe it is. Sometimes when you see a film or you read a book or any piece of art, and it conveys such an emotion to you that you can't not believe that it's based on something, that you're like, this has to come from someone's heart, it has to come from something real, and that it goes throughout this. Like, I really believe like Spike Jonze was sitting alone in his apartment thinking of, being alone and loneliness and things like that. Even if it's total crap and he just wrote it, it's like the emotion is there, that you really feel it. Joaquin Phoenix, I really believe this past 2 years has had one of the greatest comebacks I've seen in film history. Financially, maybe not, but just the work between The Master and this, he is an amazing actor. He has such a sense of somebody who's like really feels raw and really has been through something, and that works perfectly for a guy who's just ending a divorce. He feels like a guy who spent many nights crying. Joaquin Phoenix, certainly more so now than he did before, feels like an open wound, but in that glorious way, not in that unhinged, crazy way. He did that in The Master more, and it worked for that. But in this, it feels a lot more conservative, even though his job is he works for handwrittenletters.com, and he writes handwritten letters for people to give to their spouses or their kids or their grandma and things like that. And he's great at it, but he has trouble almost connecting to people. And Joaquin Phoenix seems to have an understanding to his characters now that I rarely see actors do, because he can do these artfully, magnificently crafted performances that feel internal and intellectual, but also feel very physical and external at the same time. That he's just doing these like auteur films, but knowing how to give such amazing performances. It almost feels like he's the auteur as well as these directors, the way he's acting in these films. Amy Adams also, who I think is really kind of on a new career peak recently with all the great work she's been doing. It's crazy to think that I feel like I may have even seen more, but I've seen 3 films with her this year, and each one, it's like a completely different actress. And in this, it reminds me of that Amy Adams I fell in love with in Junebug, and was like, oh man, I hope she has an amazing career. And although her hair does look like Cameron Diaz's a bit in Being John Malkovich, she has such a wonderful warmness as a character that you can imagine why Joaquin Phoenix's character of Theodore would want to be friends with her. And Scarlett Johansson, with her seductive, smoky voice, I just keep seeing her get better and better as time goes on. You can tell Spike Jonze cares about every little detail. He's a true auteur in the way that big directors are. I feel like he's making it with a lot of love and care into it, and which makes it even more personal. Most of this is how I felt when I was watching it, but then when I read about how he spent like months with Scarlett Johansson like doing this voice recording, you can tell the care and the level of perfectionism in it, but also how it doesn't feel over-labored over. It feels very simple and minimalist at the same time. This film was shot by Hoyt van Hoytema, I think that's how you say his name. He shot Let the Right One In and Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, and he's actually shooting the new Christopher Nolan movie Interstellar, and he's definitely one of the best cinematographers around. He does very similar to what the guy who shot Inside Llewyn Davis, that has this like kind of morning glow on everything, but he knows when to send it back a little, and sometimes it feels like the lighter, kind of whiter colors are desaturated, but the reds and the brighter colors are brought up in an interesting way. The way it's shot has this kind of very 70s look about it, but kind of also this environmental new 2000s look. It's very hipstery, but in a way that's just very simple and striking. It gives it kind of that intense personal view to it. He made an amazing film about someone talking to their computer. I don't think that would be as possible without Hoyt van Hoytema. He almost seems to not want to stay within the same style. He likes to mix it up and what's appropriate for the film. Like an amazing way to, and specifically crafted to that film. And the score by the Arcade Fire, I believe Karen O worked on it as well, but the score by the Arcade Fire, the way the score, kind of the electronicness of it, and how electronic music always feels like kind of lonely and introspective to me. And I think they get that vibe to it very well, and it kind of drapes over the whole film, like when you're snuggling with a nice blanket, and gives it kind of a warm sense to the whole film. If I were to list the best directors of the past 20 years, he'd have to be on there, because each of his films like feel like such a creative triumph. They feel like such a masterpiece. One of the reasons I love film currently it's Spike Jonze. And he like did that to me again and gave me this personal lonely experience that even if you're not there at the moment and you ever been in that moment where you need that connection, you can understand why he fell in love with it. But it's also such an amazing love story at the same time. There's just a lot of beautiful emotions in that he captures so well, and I'm just so thankful to have seen this film. It's just so well crafted, so well written, and it feels like almost someone's diary, but also very well structured and very well told. It's just one of the more glorious films I've seen this year. It's one of my favorite films, one of the best films I've seen this year. It'll take me a long time to get this film out of my system and to not think about how great this movie is and how much I love this film. So if you have seen Her and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.